Welcome. Now we're actually starting to another episode of The Science of Happier Work. My name is Jackson Kirchis. I'm a partner at Happiness Means Business and Warrior Leader Training, where we help military and business leaders solve their people problems. And so in this episode, we're going to get after one of the most common ones we've heard across like business to military, like nonprofits we've worked with, like work-life balance. Like, how do you get on top of things or feel like you have some balance? You're not overwhelmed all the time. And I'm going to get three really practical rules that if you apply these right away, you will improve your work life balance. Now, I'm not going to like magically wave some wand and say, oh, like if you're working 50 hours a week right now, you just do this one quick trick and you only have to work 30. No, but there are some simple kind of behavioral protocols that you can do that improve the sensation of work life balance. Some people call it work life harmony. Okay, so let's get started. The first, you may really enjoy this reading. Okay, I'm going to read this a passage from Oliver Berkman. Many people seem to feel as if they start off each morning in a kind of productivity debt, which they must struggle to pay off through the day in hopes of reaching a zero balance by the time evening comes. Few things feel more basic to my experience of adulthood than this vague sense that I'm falling behind and need to claw my way back up to some minimum standard of output. It's as if I need to justify my existence by staying on top of things. And it doesn't apply to work tasks, or it doesn't just apply to work tasks either. In times like these, when a lot of bad shit is going down, it's equally easy to feel in debt when it comes to political activism or donating to charity or volunteering and so on. Not to mention whether you're being a good partner, parent, or friend. There's just so much that needs doing. And so naturally, you're really going to have to buckle down if you have any hope of wanting to feel like a decent person. And so he goes on later to talk about how oftentimes we feel like we're starting our day almost already in a hole, as if we have to, get back to some minimum standard of productivity to just justify our existence, right? We start out with this sense of debt. Like we already have a productivity debt that we have to pay off, that we already owe, and we just need to try to claw and stay on top of things. And then once we're back on top of things, then we can sort of calm down. Then we can step back. Then we can really focus on big picture stuff. And the problem is, if you pay attention, most of us never quite get there, right? We never get it all done. We never get through it. We never achieve it, right? It's always going to feel like there's more we could be doing because there's infinite things you could be doing. I sometimes joke because I run my own business. I'm like, until I'm making $1 million a year, which I'm not, sorry, there's infinite things I could be doing. Because literally, if I'm just going to go relax or work out or hang out with a friend, I could just be cold calling clients and saying, hey, give me money, right? So there's infinite things I could be doing. And so what he encourages you to do is reframe this a little bit to say, well, what if you started at a zero balance, right? And you have a few things that you've taken the time to assess that they're actually important to you. And if you just make meaningful progress on those very important things, you're done, right? Or you get some of that psychological satisfaction. And so we sometimes talk about this as saying overcoming productivity debt, which is mostly the first principle here is a little bit of a mindset thing. The other two I'm going to give you are way more tactical. So stay with me if you're not like a mindset person. But it's simply reframing your perspective of what done means and what meaningful progress means, and saying instead of feeling like you need to frantically get back on top of things and kind of crawl your way out of some debt, what if you were to just say good enough is good enough, right? To have a good day, to make some solid progress on a few very important things. I call them VITs. That would be enough to achieve some level of psychological satisfaction rather than this constant sense of, and then I'll get to that. Or, and then when once I get through this week, I get through this month, I get through, then I can slow down. But that never happens. I sometimes call it happiness procrastination or work life balance procrastination because we just never quite get there. Okay. So that is the first rule. is trying to think not so much like I'm starting my day with this huge mountain of things I have to get back on top of things, and more so just saying I'm at a zero balance. What are my very important things? And if I get through some of those and make progress, then I'm good. Okay. Now let's get a little more practical for you practical people out there. Second rule is you need to develop an external mind. So there's some interesting kind of neuroscience research here when we look at the neuroscience of stress. And it really comes back to this idea that the mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. The mind is a thinking device, not a storage device, right? It's not a little memory card, right? It's meant for thoughts and ideas and to process information and react and strategize, but not to store 200 different things. And I've heard this referred to in cognitive sciences, open loops. Okay, whenever you make a commitment to yourself or to someone else that you will do a certain thing, it basically opens a loop in your brain, right? And your brain, until that loop is closed, it's going to be pulling somewhat at your attention. And every one of those open loops you create creates something called cognitive load, which is this idea that, right, if you can imagine physical load, if I, carry this marker and this pen and this books and all this stuff, right? Every one of those things I pick up, that's a physical load that my body has to work and use energy to hold that load. Same thing with open loops in the mind, right? All of those things you're trying to keep in your mind are creating what's called cognitive load. And that is really fundamentally where stress comes from. Sure, if you're working too much, you're not sleeping enough, you're having emotional challenges with a partner or friend or family or whatever, or manager, that's totally valid. Like that's going to stress you out. But I think what is most common for people is that feeling of you just have a million different things and your mind's never quiet. And it's like, oh, I got to check my email. I'm having a conversation, but also in the back of my mind, what was I supposed to do at the grocery store? That, oh shit, I have that big work project too. And it's that constant kind of just speed and noise in the mind. Okay. That's that cognitive load. And that is a big source of stress and a big source of feeling like you are out of balance when you think about your work life balance. Okay. So remember what I said at the beginning. The mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. So here's a protocol that I suggest you begin right away is you need to develop some sort of external mind. Okay. And this really just means some sort of system that can capture all those open loops, big or small. Okay. I need to call the car place and schedule my annual inspection. That's a relevant one. I need to, I need to, plan out my entire strategy for quarter one of next year. Okay. Big or small, you have some system to capture those things in a continuous way. So I'm going to give you one that I think is like maybe the most simple way to do it if you're just starting somewhere. Okay. You have one list and you have a calendar. Okay. On that list, you dump any open loop, and you can want it to be sortable, whatever. You can, don't do it handwritten, something digital, right? Any open loop or to do, just put into that list just so you have it. Okay. That's like your big reference list. Then you also have your calendar, which is for time specific appointments and maybe recurring things. So for instance, if you go to the gym Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock, right? You can put that in there. So you have that, right? So now just there with a big old list of shit and sorry for my cursing, calendar, you now have a thing that it's kind of like a wheelbarrow, right? Like it's holding all the cognitive load of all those open loops so they're not bouncing around in your head. Now, here's a simple actionable protocol that you can do because the thing about time management often is if you think about like you have to, build out this whole Excel file or this big sheet in Notion or download this new app and I need to, sort all of my projects with a code and order of priority and all this like forget all that. If it takes you 10 hours to manage all your stuff, then that's not time management, right? That's just more time. So simple, right? You're dumping everything. Anytime you think of something, oh, should I have to do that or I need to work on that? Anything that's pulling your attention, put it in that list. And if you want to take this step, you can. You don't have to do it every time. Just try to say, if you see something and you're struggling with it, think, what must be true for this to be done? Okay. Because sometimes if you look at your to do or project list, that list I'm talking about, you'll see things in there like mom or store or strategy, right? And it's like, Store is not a verb. Okay. What would need to be true for that to be done? Okay. I need to go to the store and purchase these 5 things. Mom is not a verb, right? You say, oh, my mom's birthday is coming up. So it's purchase gift for my mom's birthday, right? You see what I mean? We're getting a little bit more actionable so that you have a clear list somewhere of all of these different open loops that are contributing to cognitive load. And you're offloading them so that your mind can be used for having ideas, not holding them. Okay. Now, simple protocol is at the end of each workday. So you may have to start this on a Sunday evening. At the end of each workday, okay, here's what you're going to do. Very simple. You're going to look back at your list and try to update it a little, see what's most important. You're going to say, okay, what are my VITs, my VITs, my very important things? And you're going to pick maybe 4 of them. Okay. I'm going to say maximum 5, ideally 3. You're going to take those things from your list and then you're going to put them into your calendar for the next day. Okay. So you're going to say, okay, this thing, I think that'll take me 30 minutes. Put it in my calendar for 30 minutes. This thing's going to take about an hour. Put it in the calendar for 30 minutes or for an hour, right? Put like 3 or 4 of those things into the next day, then you're done. Now, the reason that's so important is that when you then come in the next day, if you ever feel like you're the type of person that you come into the office and you're like, I know I have like 3 things I need to do. And then your day starts and it's just like you get to 2 p.m. and you're like, what the hell just happened? Okay. This system is going to help you to prioritize and stick to the things that you've told yourself are important. Now, here's a best practice. You need to leave some white space in your calendar for what I call reactive work. The gotta minutes, the drive-bys, the, hey, I'm going to give you a quick call. Hey, can you jump on Zoom? Right, that's fine. You need to leave some buffer in there, but you can imagine saying, okay, my 3 important things tomorrow, I need to make 10 cold calls. I need to write 1 chapter of my book, and I need to check in with my business partner about our stuff next week. Okay, beautiful. Write a chapter of the book. That should be an hour first thing in the morning. 10 cold calls, that might be 90 minutes right after that. Check in with my business partner, that might be 15 minutes to write an email because I'm not going to Zoom with him. Put that in my calendar, and then I've got still a huge bunch of white space where I can like check on email, look at my text messages, all of that other stuff. So you should have some standing pockets in your calendar for that reactive work, your texts, your Slack, your emails, etc. But otherwise, really simple, okay? Anything that's pulling at your attention in your mind, you're dumping into a list. You also have a calendar. At the end of each day, you look back at your list, figure out what 3 to 5 very important things are, put time for them into your calendar the next day. Then the next day you show up, do your thing, what's on the calendar. If you have white space, you can look at your list or you can look at your email or inbound stuff. Get to the end of the day, do the same thing, right? That's like a super fast. It should spend like 15 minutes on it at the end of your day. If you do that though, I promise you, you will feel more focused, more organized. And the thing is, this is going to cut so much of your stress because like I said, so much of that is just the cognitive load of trying to keep it all in your head that if you have an external mind, okay, a system to hold it in a process, it makes the whole thing way more effortless. All right. So step 2, create that external mind with that very simple protocol. And here's the third. And this one I think can actually be the most powerful. There's kind of 2 that go hand in hand here. It's the idea that not all time is created equal. Okay. Not all time is created equal. If you had, let's say, 4 hours of PTO time off that you could use, would you rather do it Tuesday, 8 a.m. to noon or Friday, 1 p.m. to 5? Obviously Friday, because you can do way more stuff. Okay, so not all time is created equal. This is true for your work and for your life. So think about the life side first. What are these pockets of time or behaviors or relationships that have a disproportionate impact on your overall quality of life? You can probably think of a few just right now, right? So here's an example then. You're going to try to create a sacred hour, I call them. And it doesn't have to be exactly an hour, and it doesn't have to be every day, right? It might be one afternoon once a week. It might be 15 minutes once a day. It might be 2 hours twice a week. Okay, it doesn't matter. But here's the idea is you found this pocket of time that has a disproportionate impact on your happiness, and you're going to protect it. You're going to claim it. Here's the thing. You can't make time. And I say that because all your time is probably already accounted for. There's no time to make, right? Unless you stop sleeping. So instead of make time, you have to claim time and set boundaries and honor them yourself. And that's why I call it a sacred hour, is treating it as sacred. So you pick some of those pockets of your very valuable time, you protect it, and you do that on a maybe daily or weekly, some regular cadence. So here's what I mean. Okay, a couple examples. We had a guy we worked with in the military who was also a police officer, so super busy. He worked like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We did this exercise. Okay, what's your key time that has a disproportionate impact on quality of life? And he said, well, really from like 5:30 to 6:30, my kids are getting home from sports, my wife's getting home from work, and we're all kind of around and we eat dinner. So I said, okay. I, again, don't have a magic wand that you can just work less all of the sudden. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to work from whatever, 7 to 5:30, okay? So remember, if you leave at 5:30, you're still going to have like 90 minutes of stuff to do. You're going to get home a little after 5:30. You have a sacred hour from 5:45 to 6:30-ish, okay? Not perfect. And then you're going to have to get back online and telework for another hour, hour and a half and catch up on other stuff. But that way you will consistently be making time each day to connect with your kids and your wife. And so he did this for a while and it just totally transformed a lot of his sense of work life harmony. Because it's like, still, yeah, it's not ideal that you're then going to be working until like 8, but given the circumstances and the constraints, how can we create that greater sense of work life harmony or work life balance? Another example would be just okay, if you're maybe a religious person, you say, all right, every Sunday, that's like my Sabbath. Me and my family are going to go to church, and then I'm not checking any email, any work calls, anything the rest of the day. And then I'll reevaluate on Monday morning. Okay. So it can be weekly, it can be daily. But the idea here is you're creating some sacred time to reinvest in yourself and you're claiming it so that no matter what happens, your work, your other people, your community stuff, your volunteering, your hobby, none of it can crowd in on that. That time is yours. And if you just do that, you'll immediately feel greater work life balance, even if you're still working too much, because I can't always help with that. Okay. Now, the sister of this rule, these two go together. I said sacred hour and power hour. Because just like there are pockets of time for your life that have a disproportionate impact, there are probably pockets of time at work that have a disproportionate impact. Think about this. There's probably like 2 or 3 hours in the day where you know you're at your best, right? And the rest of the time, not so much. I sometimes say for me, 1 hour in the morning is worth 2 in the afternoon. And same thing back when I was working a full-time job and growing my own side business, like I knew I needed to carve out an hour before work because that was like my best deep work time. So here is the power hour protocol. Same thing. It's not every day and it's not exactly an hour. It might be 1 hour a day, first thing in the morning. It might be on Fridays, I work from home and do 4 hours. Okay. Whatever the thing is, it's some sort of block time that you have claimed when you are at your best to focus on something that is important that often gets kind of crowded out by other stuff. You know that like matrix that's a little cliche, but people talk about like urgent and important, important but not urgent, right? Urgent and not important, and like where are you spending your time? Okay, a lot of people they have important things that are not urgent, and they just don't make time for them. Developing yourself, personal development, especially in like a business context, right? Like the amount of time I spent, like when I was at this big company and I worked in management, like it was kind of insane. Like no one there was reading books on management. Like no one there was reading books on strategy and operations, even though my job was literally strategy and operations manager. It's what, like this doesn't make sense. Okay. So time for professional and personal development, time for developing your people, time for strategy, right? Those are all things that often, especially if you're like running a business or you're in a leadership role in a business, you don't make time for. Charlie Munger has this great thing where he talks about the average business person is kind of like a dentist where they schedule themselves on all these little blocks. And if they can get one more 15-minute meeting in, they just feel like the day was a huge success. It's like, no, you need time to think. You need time to develop. You need time to actually learn, process information, and make decisions. So I encourage you to use your power hour for is to do that same exercise. What are some things that if I were to do them consistently, it would really level up my work performance or my work results, right? Maybe it's crafting strategy. Maybe it's writing a book. Maybe it's taking time to develop a team member, right? There are many ways you can take this. Okay. So another military example we worked with, a lady, she was in HR and she just got all these emails that she could sort into like actionable ones. And she said, if I can just start my day with an hour to get my email organized, bang out and action all of these different urgent HR requests, and then start on my normal day and have my team walking in because she had like an open door policy, right? Like I just feel so much better. So she put up a sign on her door, power hour, emergencies only. She still had that great open door policy that her team loved, but she had an hour to set her day off right and not fall behind. I worked with a chief of staff who had a similar thing, but we talked about, could you do, again, every Friday, maybe work from home, and that Friday afternoon is your deep work strategy for actually sitting back and thinking about, we have 7,000 people in our organization. How are we going to get after retention or people strategy, leadership development, et cetera? Those things that often you don't have time for because you're putting out fires. By the way, the power hour is how I wrote whatever, it's somewhere on my bookshelf. Both of my books, one of them was 3 hours a week on Saturday while I was living at the monastery with Zen monks. I would just pay 3 hours. I'm just going to write for 3 hours. I did that for like 10 weeks, wrote a book. The other one, I think I did 2 hours a day for a few months. Like, it's really powerful. Okay. So, this final step of this protocol, like I said, sacred hour and power hour. Here's what you want to do. What are these areas or pockets of time in your personal life that have a disproportionate impact on your quality of life? And you're going to claim time for them. Something daily or something weekly or some regular cadence where you're staking out and protecting that time to reinvest into your life side of the equation. Then you're going to look at the work side. What are my little pockets there of activities that would help me really get on top of things and make some long-term progress that maybe I'm not making time for now? And ideally, you'll align that with those periods of time where you're at your best and you're really focused. Okay. Same thing, daily or weekly, you're protecting that time. And if you just do those two small things, once again, like you may still have the same amount of work to do and all that, but you're going to feel a way better sense of work-life balance, work-life satisfaction, and your productivity is probably going to improve as well. Okay. So I hope this was a very practical session. I'll just run back through them, right? From the jump, this was a little bit more mindset, but overcoming that feeling of productivity debt or productivity anxiety and just reframing a little bit how you view your own productivity and op tempo. Okay, the second one is creating that external mind. Remember a simple protocol I gave you. You have a list where you can dump everything and capture it so that you're not storing it all in your head. You have a calendar for time specific things. And then at the end of each day, you look at your list, you look at your very important things, select a few of them for the next day, leaving in some white space for reacting to things and communications, etc. You do that, and you're going to have a nice cadence there, and it's reducing that cognitive load by getting that into an external mind. And then finally, okay, focus on the small behaviors, time allocations, things that if you were to invest in the life side and in the work side would have a disproportionate impact. You're staking out, claiming time with those for those with sacred hour and power hour. Okay, so if you want to go more in depth on this stuff, I call it happier time management, which probably needs a better name, but I think it's certainly gotten some people that I've worked with incredible results. Please reach out or find some information down below. I'm happy to run you through some of the stuff or share resources. I'll share my calendar, whatever you want to look at. But it can be a really important tool for improving work-life balance and your effectiveness. So check out the channel for more from the Science of Happier Work. We sometimes do research, sometimes do practical tools like this one, but it's all in the spirit of helping you to be at your best in your work and your life. So thank you for watching or for listening. This has been Jackson Kirchis. I'll see you next time.